Hello there, Drew Hanish of Whiskey Lore. Time for another whiskey tasting. And today we are going to do a tasting of what has been called the value version of Blantons. And the reason it's called that is because it's the same mash bill number 2. It's a high rye mash bill, but it is actually aged not quite as long as Blantons. And so I'm going to point this out to you right off the bat. Ancient Age, 10 stars, what we're going to be doing a tasting of. Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 90 proof. This jug set me back $22. So, I mean, it's hard to feel like you're going to get cheated paying that little for some whiskey. And then to think that people say, wow, well, this is basically an alternative to Blanton's. Well, let me get a bottle. And that's what I did. But last time I was in Kentucky, I was like, I have to get a bottle because I need to know what all this hype is about on this particular whiskey. And so I drove all the way through Kentucky, couldn't find it. And then I got back to South Carolina, and there it was on my store shelf. So you never know where you're going to run into these things. Distilled, aged, and bottled by Ancient Age Distilling Company, Frankfort, Kentucky. Now, if you go look on Google Maps and try to find the Ancient Age Distilling Company, you're never going to find it because this is made at Buffalo Trace. And just similar to the idea of Pappy Van Winkle, the Van Winkles own that formula, and they basically just contract Buffalo Trace to create it, store it, and then bottle it. And so Age International, which is a company that's been around for a long time. It's a Japanese-owned company. In fact, the company that owns it actually also owns Tomaten. So my Kubakan fans out there will find it interesting that there's a relationship and ownership between Blantons and Ancient Age and all that line along with Tomaten. All right, I'm going to cut through all of this stuff about Blantons. I'm going to give you my opinion on it, and you guys feel free to comment below. I have a feeling this is going to probably be one of my most commented on videos. Whether you agree with me or you disagree with me, the opinion on Blantons is going to drive my conversation about Ancient Age. Now, I am 100% with you guys that the Blanton's bottle is one of the coolest bottles out there. And I have a little mini of it. It's got your little rider on the top. And so these become collectible, and that's part of the reason that people will go out and get multiple bottles. Caribou Crossing, which is also made by Sazerac, by the way, is a Canadian whiskey that has maple leaves at the top that are collectible. So very nice bottle there too. It actually comes in a Crown Royal-esque bag as well. So it does the whole Canadian thing front to back. My opinion on Blanton's is that it is a good bourbon. It is probably worth $30. It is not worth $25 a glass. And that's what my local bar charges for it. $25 a glass for something that tastes like bourbon. I went to Frankfort, Kentucky, and I was at a hotel, and they had a bar. And while I was sitting at the bar, I said, what do you have under the bar that you don't have up on your shelves that I could try? So, well, we got some Blantons. So, okay. So they poured me some Blantons. And in Kentucky, I call it Kentucky pour. You get yourself a rocks glass, no ice, I'm drinking it neat, and she's filled that glass. It was just pour it in. None of this, trying to jigger your way into it. Nope. Got a nice full glass of this thing, and I didn't finish it. I drank half of it, and then I was like, it's good bourbon, but I am not a knock it back kind of guy. I want to nose it and taste it. That's why I'm mostly in Glencairn glasses, in Capitas, because I want to nose an experience, and I don't need a big full glass. I laugh when I see people fill a Glencairn up to almost the mouth. It's like, no, that's not really the idea behind this glass. It's to have a little bit of whiskey and really get to know that whiskey. And to me, I took the Blantons up to my room after I drank about half of it, and I woke up the next morning, the glass was still sitting there with half of the Blantons in it, because I'm like, yes, it's a good bourbon. It just isn't this thing that blows me away. And so when people are now seeing that, I mean, I say it's sort of for the uninitiated. When you talk to somebody and they go, oh, I love Blantons, it's like people who say, oh, I love Johnny Walker Blue. You immediately go, I wonder how much they really know about whiskey. And like I said, I don't say that to denigrate Blantons. It's to say that they have done a wonderful job of building up this mystique around the brand. And Buffalo Trace is doing that with all of their whiskeys, that because a lot of these are allocated, they're getting these ballooned reputations. And are they deserved? I've had Weller 12, fantastic whiskey, but I've talked to people who have said, yeah, but it's kind of seasonal. Some years it's good, some years it's a good whiskey, but it's not just amazing. And so, you know, sometimes we tend to exaggerate things to promote them, because we hear Blantons is good. We're gonna say, oh, you know, Blantons, you got to go get some of that. You got to go get that. It's worth $25 a glass to go get. Well, the same thing is happening in the value world with ancient age. I see bloggers who are writing about ancient age and saying, you know, 90 proof whiskey, same mash bill. Yes, 10-star means it used to be a 10-year-old whiskey, but now it's a 4-year-old whiskey because it's a Kentucky straight bourbon. And so, you know, it is a good quality whiskey. And at $15, $16 a bottle, how can you beat it? Well, the first thing I do is I go look at this bottle and I'm like, okay, I'm reading through all of this information, pretty label. And I go, yeah, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. So must be 4 years of age, unless it says somewhere on this label that it is not 4 years of age, because straight requires, if it's under 4 years, it has to tell you how long the youngest whiskey in the bottle is. Oh, wait, look up here. Surgeon General says, you know, if you're pregnant, oh, wait, age 36 months. Okay, it's a 3-year whiskey. It's not a 4-year whiskey. Interesting getting it out of the way like that so that you don't really notice. And it has fooled some bloggers along the way. So this is a very young whiskey. It is a whiskey that when I taste it, I tend to think that it's probably not been treated quite the same way as a Blanton's, because I don't really get the idea that it's a Blanton's substitute from a quality standpoint, because Blanton's is a solid bourbon. This, I'm going to do a nosing and tasting of it, and I'll reveal to you what it is that I think about this that makes it not quite the Blanton's killer. So on the nose, you get, and it's a high rye mash bill, you get a nice little bit of rye on the nose. And you get those bourbon character notes, like the little caramel, a little vanilla in there. I get some baking spice. I actually get a slight cherry note in it, which is interesting. Let's go and do a taste. Cheers. There's a grain note, caramel, toffee, big time. And then it just disappeared. There's a little lingering rye note, maybe some citrus. Gone. Clean, very clean, but not a substantial whiskey. Age obviously is a factor here, because it's pleasant, but it just leaves you in such a hurry. There's a little bit of what I call Chex Mix kind of grain note left on the palate. slight bit of char in there. If you are new to whiskey, I think this would be great starter whiskey from that standpoint. I'm going to do another nosing. So there's a note that comes in here, and I've smelled it before. There's a pneumonia note. And if you have ever owned a male cat, and there has been some urinating somewhere around, and then the sun comes in and hits that spot, and you didn't realize that the cat had done that, and this ammonia smell comes up. It's in there. It's a little ammonia scent. And the problem with that ammonia scent is that once you discover it's there, it's hard to ignore. It's kind of like, okay, I smell it and I can't let it go. I'm trying to smell the nice herbally rye that I picked up in there first, but now all of a sudden I'm thinking about urine again. Luckily, that does not come through on the palate. Whatever my opinion on Blantons, which, like I say, fantastic 30-year-old or $30 a bottle whiskey that is just being overpriced. This is something that deserves to be a $12 to $15 bottle of whiskey. Honestly, I'd say probably closer to a $12 bottle of whiskey. I wouldn't put it down to a $7 bottle of whiskey because I think it has a nice performance, but it's just too light. It's just for the bourbon drinker who is experienced and has a palate. I would go to the Evan Williams line and taste something from that line. I would spend the extra money, spend $25 and get Old Forester 100, and you will get an exceptional whiskey at that price point. Versus, for the same price, I bought a jug of this, but I don't know when I'm going to drink this. I wouldn't even put this in a decanter for people because it's not impressive. It does the job, as they say. But it's not as rough as like a benchmark, So my feeling on it is that it has its place on the shelf, but I'm not. If you want to taste what Blantons is going to taste like, this isn't really a good way to get yourself there. I mean, I think it has some of the elements of Blantons, but if you're going to have Blantons, but tell them to lower the price. And tell your liquor stores and your bars to stop screwing you around and making you pay way much more for a whiskey than really it should be charged at the price it should be charged at, because it's $25 a glass is stupid. And I say the same for Henry McKenna 10. If they're charging you $25 to drink a glass of Henry McKenna 10, turn your nose and look at the Scotch list, because it's probably cheaper. That's what I love about my local place. It's like they charge you $25 for Henry McKenna, but you can get Glendronach for $12 a glass. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get the Glendronach instead. So anyway, that's my feeling on it. What do you think about Blantons? What do you think about Ancient Age? Do you think Ancient Age is actually give me your price point. What do you think the price point should be on a fifth of Ancient Age? $7, $12, $15? What do you think? There we go. All right. Enough food for thought, and until next time, there's not much left in my glass. Cheers, and Sláinte mhath. I won't be buying this again. And you know why? Because I will probably have this bottle when I'm 90.